Welcome to Being Curious podcast show with Counselling Reflections, a podcast where we dive deep into the human experience, uncovering stories of resilience and triumph. We are proudly supported by Moskin, a UK-based skincare line infused with sea moss.
So it is lovely to meet you, Flora. Could you let us know from this side of the pond? I'm based in the UK, just outside, in the north of the country, just outside Manchester. And you're on Being Curious with Counselling Reflections. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself and our listeners? Just where you're located, what you do, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure being in your podcast and spending some time with you to share and discuss about topics like, where I am in my life and what I'm doing and my philosophy, as we said. So thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm based in Zurich, in Switzerland. I'm Greek originally, but I've been living in Switzerland for 14 years now. And I have a very interesting journey, I would say, when it comes to my life. But I think in our conversation, we'll focus more on my kind of coaching practice and my holistic philosophy when it comes to our well being, our resilience, right, as human beings, taking care of our mind, heart, body, and spirit. So, just shortly, coaching came in my life in 2016. I had a great mentor and boss at work, and apparently, sometimes there are people that they see on us things that we may not believe, we may not be really aware, right? And she actually invited me into exploring coaching, which at that time I had no idea what coaching was, right? And but it was like when I had started my first kind of steps into my personal development journey, looking into mindfulness, a bit of Reiki, therapy at that time. And yeah, she planted the seeds. I was curious, so I really love the title of your podcast. I was curious enough to, okay, thanks for the recommendation. She connected me with her coach, and then I had a chat with her coach. So she kind of explained me what is coaching, how it works. And then this coach connected me with 2, 3 coaching schools in Geneva at that time. And yeah, out of curiosity, I went with the flow and I picked the coaching school that really, my intuition said, go for that. And to be honest, since then, my whole life and career evolved and changed radically. So yeah, this is then how.
I'm listening to you, Flora, and I'm really curious as to what was happening in your life in 2016 for your then manager to see something in you. So I'm curious at that point, what was going on for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was working for a big organization for PepsiCo at that time in finance. So this is my background. This is what I studied. And I was in Geneva and I was traveling a lot, delivering training to employees in finance governance. But I love this connection with people and teaching them or training them or sharing my knowledge in finance with them. This part of connecting with people, she observed that I enjoy that. And I'm not sure if I was charismatic at that time because my first training to employees was really a disaster. I still remember that, right? Um,
In what way? Why was it a disaster?
I mean, public speaking at that time was not my strength. And finance governance, it was not something that I was passionate about, right? So I love talking about things that I'm passionate about, that I walk the talk, that I own. So yeah, it was not a good one. But then over time, for sure, I became much better. And she was aware of my my also hobbies and things that I was interested in my personal life. So this is how she came, I think, with this idea when we had our farewell drinks, because they decided to shut down the office in Geneva. So they asked me either to leave the company or move to Poland or London. But at that time, my decision was to stay in Geneva. So this is how we had our farewell drinks, and she came up with this idea. So this is, sometimes out of some challenges or problems, right?
Yeah.
A gift can come up as a
Mm,
seed.
it's really lovely because it seems to have resonated with you and then sent you on this journey. And you could have gone into therapy, you could have gone to lots of different aspects of helping or coaching or teaching. What is it about coaching as opposed to other modalities that you feel, okay, really is transformative for other people's lives or your own?
Yeah. I think my aha moment was the first coaching session as part of the training that I did, right? The certification. We were coaching each other, and then I had to find 3 case studies or 3 clients. So I remember that after the first session, for the first time in my life and career, I had this, career, I would say, not life, I had this deep sense of fulfillment that I supported someone, right? Because in finance, you don't really get that, right? The role is more operational, more process focused, numbers focused. So not about having impact and positive impact on another human being. So this emotional state kind of hit me. I'm like, I love that. I like how I feel that. And when I see just, and it's simple, right? Just listening to someone, asking some powerful questions, and then you see the other human being really moving into a reflection mode, having some aha moments, right? Some, okay, yeah, we do that. That's why, right? So I think this is the why coaching actually it was a stepping stone for me to bring change and to move into this space since then.
It's really interesting. I'm listening to you because I think for those who are coaches, sometimes you see results quicker than probably in counseling.
Mm.
And the fact that you also are part of that journey and experience, and it felt really aha with you as well as the clients. Was that always you? Did you always have that ability to kind of influence your family or friends or work colleagues?
Yes, that's true, right? But in my career was not that present. But I remember that, for example, my friends, they were calling me Flora Connecting People. Or at that time, I had like a group on Facebook sending them some powerful quotes or positive messages. And it was so easy for people at work, out of work, to talk to me and trust me. But I haven't, to be honest, I've never thought about psychology or therapy as a career option. But yeah, connecting with people, building trusted relationships, it's so easy for people to open up to me, right? I mean, now with coaching, it's even much easier. So yeah, something was there always. I was always curious about learning from others, regardless of their age, regardless of their background. Like I loved connecting. Isn't even as a kid, I loved spending time with my grandma, but even with kids of my age or adults, older people. So yeah, I had this sense of curiosity to learn from others, and it was easy for others to open up and trust me. So and to connect on a deeper level, I think.
So how would you describe your coaching style and the way that you connect with people? So it sounds like there's an innate skill. You were born with it, or maybe from your family of origin, you was able to develop it. But what is it that you do, and why do you do it in this particular way in
Mm.
terms of coaching?
I think two things are those that make my coaching, I think, quite unique. So we're all different and all unique, and we bring our gifts into our practices and whatever we do. So one is caring. So in coaching, we talk about the essential positive quality. So the gift that every human being brings to the world. And for me is caring. So this is something that shines out, right? So one is that, and the other one, and I think for people like us to be counselors, therapists, coaches, caring is our power, right? It's our strength. And the other one is that the coaching methodology that I went through and I studied is integral. So this was kind of the foundation for me to build a holistic coaching philosophy. And for me, what is very critical when I connect with people, especially experts like us, is that we need to walk the talk. So my healing journey, transformational journey has been, it started like 8-10 years ago, but it has been always holistic. So walking the talk, learning, healing into the emotional dimension, right? Heart, then spiritual, then physical, then mental, right? So I always approach people across these four streams. When I have a session, I connect, I coach from my spirit, I coach from my body, and I'm trying to give time of mind. So this is what one of my coaches that I really love, she talked about spiritual coaching, how you can coach from your spirit, so you connect with your client from this level and your body. So I think this is quite unique, and I see that it has a difference. So, and it allows me to approach, to read, right? To see, to scan people differently than simply listening just to the words that they use, but what happens in the body, what's the energy around them when they talk.
It's really interesting. I don't know if it's an age thing from my point of view. As I've got older, I'm more connected or wanting to be grounded with a spiritual connection. I'm here in the UK, and the idea of spirituality feels like it's shrinking. People are less connected to a greater source or greater power or an internal world. When I talk to people from kind of Africa and other parts of the world, they tend to be much more connected to the source, and connected either from the body to the ground, to the air, to the mountains in some ways. What is it about connecting to the spiritual, coaching that side from that holistic side, bears results from your point of view? Why does it work compared to other ideas?
That's a great question. I think the main reason behind that is because mainly we operate from our mind, right? And when we struggle with something and we reach out to a therapist, a counselor, a coach, the mind is looking for answers. The mind is looking for solutions, right? And that's why we seek support. So if as a coach, I stay into this space and connect with my client from my mind, we will both get stuck into that, right?
Yeah.
Invitation is to, because we're not just our minds, we're more than that. So how can I support the client, my coaching, to opening up, right? And widen the perspectives and kind of, okay, this is what my mind says, this is my ego, these are the beliefs that I built when I was a kid. Somehow to invite them to, okay, what love would say, what your higher self, and it depends on the client, the language that I'm going to use. For some, soul would work. For some men, soul wouldn't work. So I would invite them into what your sage powers would say, what your higher self, right? What love. So I'm writing a book now from fear to love. So I also weaving these two foundation, like the fundamental energies that we have, in order to invite them into like widening, right? Going out of their comfort zone. What else could be out there? What else I can build as a skill? Or how can I see it differently? And I think the spiritual or connecting with our higher self or the source, as you said, or the power of love can help us to go out of the very limited structure and horizons that the mind has, right? It's really, this is just survival mode. With some, I even bring in neuroscience, sympathetic versus parasympathetic. So really, yeah, to help them to go out of that and see things a bit differently. And then gradually and slowly to start building these capabilities and skills and thinking patterns. So as then it will be easier for them without my help to connect.
Oh, it's interesting. I'm listening to you, and a couple of things kind of come to mind. One is kind of like the AA, and we're looking at Addiction Anonymous and the idea of a higher power. And in recovery, people do really well when they're able to connect to something greater than themselves in terms of like mental health. and the absence of love, or the absence of, or the belief that there isn't love. I used to work in social services, and I often used to go to professionals meetings and talk about professional love for families. So, and the professionals didn't get that, that the need for a family to see a professional caring about them, wanting the best for them, and coming from a place of love. But sometimes people are not able to see that because they haven't had it, or the love has been used in a way that has been quite difficult or traumatic for them.
Yeah.
How do you work with trauma? I suppose my question would be, how do you work with the complexities of fear and the complexities of love in
Yeah.
terms of a coaching idea?
Yeah, self-love, I would say, is always like a theme that comes up, right? It's the foundation in every coaching relationship. Some powerful questions like what love would say, what love would do, or um, I always bring like the inner child in, and how would you talk to your kid for those that they have kids, or visualize your inner child, like bring yourself like 3 years old. Would you say that to this little child? And the answer is always no. So I think these are things that would start shifting internally. And then we would unpack. I use a lot the completion process, right? When there are events like that. So I always ask them, when was the first time that something like that happened or you felt like that, right? So I always work with soma, body, and emotions. And then we would unpack it as long as they feel safe. And then I would always invite them into kind of, okay, let's return this scenario in a different way, because now you are older, you have been through so many, how someone who loves themselves would handle that, right? And then we play a bit with this event and we change different parts of the event, always with love. So we bring in with love. And you are true, right? People, they don't know what is love. And I didn't know, right? With the mind, because we try to approach love with the mind. But love comes from the heart. So we feel love. We don't understand love, right? So it's something that we feel with our heart. And we feel safe when we are in love, when we feel loved, right? So then, with the completion process, we try kind of, okay, how we can turn that around, how we can shift that in a more empowering, in a more loving kind of scenario, and gradually kind of, yeah, forgiveness can come in to forgive kind of the other person, or compassion, empathy for the other person, but also themselves. I work a lot with affirmation. So what would you need? And then reparenting. Okay, so what the inner child would need, what the inner child didn't receive at that stage or through this traumatic event, and then how you can offer that to yourself. Which is, I think it's a deep exercise. It may take time, but I think reparenting, in my view, it's a lifelong practice, right? Always when we're triggered, some trauma may come up, right? When we are ready to handle that. And for me, the best exercise is, okay, what do I need? What triggered me? Which needs haven't been met? Which emotions they need kind of, I need to embrace, to love these emotions, to release them. And what the ideal parent would say, would do. So really reparenting ourselves, because we cannot change our parents. So if it's about
And I think it's really interesting listening to you, because I think there's really beautiful kind of journeys that you're expressing. Because I think you're right. I think in some ways we have to kind of help people to reparent and rediscover that inner child, that, or maybe rediscover the inner child, or maybe just kind of explore the safety. What can I do as an adult to say to the child, so that the child knows that everything's okay in my adult life?
yeah.
And I think there's something about that kind of exploration. It takes a while, doesn't it, to kind of rediscover. I'm in my 50s and I'm still finding out things that I thought I worked on that pop up in life. What are you still learning about yourself in this journey of kind of rediscovering and talking to your child and reparenting?
I think for me, the biggest challenge and learning is trust. So, really trusting, really kind of um, flowing. So, now my mantra this year is to flow with life, to dance with life. Um, no need to know, no need to have answers, no need to control when, how things will happen. For sure, I work a lot on what I want and I visualize or use affirmations or meditations, etc. But then I surrender what I want to the universe. So I think that's not easy to let it go and surrender and trust life, the universe, God, whatever works for everyone. So I think this is the longest learning and kind of journey so far, which is interesting how life or the universe is playing with me, is testing me, right? The trust muscle is not, I don't know about others, but at least for me, was not there as a given, not in all aspects of my life, in few, but it's interesting. And I think, my theta healing practitioner, she told me once that first we trust life in order then to build the foundation of love. And I couldn't understand that, to be honest, right? So I thought that love and then trust, but when you trust the higher source or God or universe or life, you feel safe and you just flow, and everything that happens for a
First,
reason. Or
first you trust life before you can then be able to accept other things into your life.
yes,
Is it about kind of trusting that I call it trusting that the universe is kind and gracious. So knowing that it's okay, that the experiences that I'm going to have, I'm going to be able to deal with them and be able to kind of thrive or accept the learning that it might offer.
yeah, I'm safe, right?
Yeah. How did you surrender that to? Because I think when I've got some clients, that part is difficult to be able to trust that the universe will look after their needs, trust that life is going to give you what you need and that you'll be able to take from life what you need. How do you encourage your coaches to kind of take those initial steps, those tentative steps to embracing that philosophy?
Yeah. Um, I think there are two tools that I use a lot, and I invite my clients that I master them first. So, one, I invite them all to go through the saboteurs assessment. So, as they identify their own saboteurs, so the strengths that become saboteurs in our life in order to keep us safe. So, this is the sympathetic nervous system, the survival mode. And then through the coaching, they really understand how the saboteurs play out, right? The language that they use. So, they understand when they are on survival mode. And when we are on survival mode, we don't feel safe and we cannot trust. So, we don't feel loved, right? And then I talk to them about the sage power. So it's very interesting to explore this philosophy at positiveintelligence.com. So it's from Stanford University. It's super practical and very transformational. And then when I talk to them about the parasympathetic nervous system, that we all have our sage powers, and curiosity is one of them: passion, purpose, empathy, right? Creativity, these five. And I invite them to slowly move and use them, utilize them more. How can I be curious about what life brought to me now? I had a call yesterday with the friend, he has been laid off, right? So I invited him, okay, yeah, the controller would say, I need a job, I need financial security, which will move you into more fear, more stress, anxiety. But what if you shift into your sage powers and be curious about this event that happened and see it as an opportunity or a gift, right? Which this takes time first, right? But this is how we build mental fitness, right? So growth mindset. Let me move from fixed to growth mindset with practical examples. And the more we practice, the easier it becomes. And then, so this is one tool, which is the foundation. And the second tool is time in silence. So, which means for me to be able to calm down my nervous system and move from the saboteurs and the survival mode into sage, into love, into safety, I need to breathe. I need somehow to use the tools that work for me to calm down the nervous system so as I can see things clearly. I cannot see things from a different perspective if I'm in fear and stress. So that's why I think it's super important for me. It's so critical. Some call it meditation, some call it breathing, some call it just use your hands and tap your fingers, or time in silence, as I like to call it. Whatever works for everyone. Can be time in nature, but really downtime. Can be 5 minutes is
It's
an
interesting. Yeah, I'm so glad that you kind of touched on that, because I think when I look in my practice, some of my clients might fear silence, that actually that space to be with themselves and their body can be activating in some ways and need a lot of noise. And I also wonder, in society where we're using a lot of our phones, and we're on Instagram and TikTok and other social platforms, our our need to be distracted. And you're saying, actually, as much as it is about doing the work, it's also kind of finding space to sit within ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
How did you come to your practice? Have you been doing your practice a long time? And what does your day look like when you're doing your practice and giving space to quietness and giving space to growth?
Yeah. That's another journey. So I started like in 2016 or 17 with Headspace, so just some short meditations. But at that time, I didn't have the knowledge, the expertise, or the wisdom. So just playing with Headspace, to be honest. But for sure, these were the seeds. But when I was going through my PCC, the professional coaching course, once one of the 5 requirements, so practices that we had to do daily for a year, was a daily sitting practice for at least 30 minutes. And I'm very disciplined. So if you tell me you have to do that, I'm going to do it. So I'm very disciplined. And I was sitting every morning. So they call it sitting practice, not meditation, because they asked us to sit in silence every morning or evening, at least 30, 45 minutes. And I did that for a year every day. And this is how I build the habit, right? So sometimes we need something to push us, like a test, a certification, something to prove that we can achieve. And this opened up a lot, because this silence actually, I built my meditation corner. I think it's important for the mind and the body to know that there is a space for me where I feel safe to sit. And over time, this meditation corner became like a bigger space. I have some crystals, I have candles, things that help me to connect with myself and the higher source. And then I started playing with that, reading books with my coach, other things that I'm doing, hypnotherapy, or even some oracle cards that really inspired me. A heart math, kind of to simply sit, connect with my heart, and ask questions and get guidance. And then when you start getting guidance, like, wow, this works, right? Because sometimes as you said, we always go to our mind and we're trying to keep our mind busy. And when we need answers to some big questions or even small questions, we tend to overthink and to get all the answers from our mind. But we have also our heart, right? Our higher self. So when I started practicing the heart math kind of meditations, and I'm using one of Greg Braden's practices where you ask your heart literally a question like, should I do that or that, right? Or what do you need from me? Or should I choose this job or the other one? Or is this person the right for me? Yeah, and I'm asking my heart this kind of question.
Who was that? So again, sorry, who was the person?
Greg Braden.
Greg Brendan.
Yeah, you can Google him or follow him on Instagram, and he's really into hard maths and quantum physics. And the Hard Math organization in the US, actually, they they working on our heart for 20, 30 years now, and they've proven that our heart has its own wisdom and intelligence, actually its own nervous system, and it sends more messages to the mind than the mind to the heart. But we just don't use our heart. So I published in my blog the 5 most powerful practices for 2025, and dropping to the heart is one of them. And I think this can be very transformational to simply drop, right?
Yeah. I'm putting my hand on my heart because this you're just talking and my cheeks are smiling because I just think that's really, it feels really powerful and quite really powerful for me. Maybe that's because where I am in my life, where I can imagine that, just connecting to your heart's desire and just to understand what your heart is wanting. And I often do head, heart, gut. What does your gut say? What does your head say? What does your heart say? And it's interesting when you hear other people talk about different parts of those having different needs and saying different things. But I really can, for some reason, I can connect with this idea around the heart.
Mm.
How do you work with resistance then? How do you I'm converted, Flora. I would be happy to be with you. But I can imagine some men or women are quite skeptical. They are really head people. My head says it, so therefore it must mean this way. And so the way I think is right. How do you invite them to kind of step out of their comfort zone and visit their heart more?
Yeah. So I invite them to, through this during the session, or I offer them a practice after the session to drop to their body and heart. So either we do a heart math practice during the session. So for 2-3 minutes, I invite them to close their eyes and I guide them through. Focus on your heart. We ask some questions. So as they experience that, right? We need to experience that with our heart and body and let go of the mind. And when you experience that, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I feel so calm just in 2 minutes, because these practices are very short, 2-3 minutes, you don't need more. And I'm doing that also at work. I can have an audience of hundreds of people or 50, whatever, and I walk them through a short heart math practice, 2 minutes, and they experience the shift. And because inner peace and calmness is missing, and we need that more, they love that space. And I'm going to do that again. So, one way is that really to experience something in the session. And the other way, as I said earlier, I'm trying to meet the client where the client is and her lifestyle. And if, for example, I had a client and he was like, no, meditation is not for me. Okay, so I explored his hobbies and he liked listening to music. And I'm like, how do you feel when you listen to music? What kind of music? So this was his inner peace space. This was his meditation practice. And at the end of our coaching journey, yeah, he started kind of meditating, even with Headspace or other apps. I don't remember which one. And even talking about trust and that, so I think trying to find people where they are. So those that they love nature, just stand in nature for 5 minutes and close your eyes, how you feel, right? So I'm not trying to impose on them the way that I do things, but really to meet them where they are and to add simple shifts in things that they do already in their life. So habits that they have, hobbies that they have in their life. So as we need to do something in addition because of our coaching, which is like a commitment, just to simply change something and combine it, associate it with something else.
I think that's something really interesting because the fact that actually when you sit with someone where they're at and you're working with their ambivalence or you're working just where their interest lies, you kind of get more results. I've been trying to get my partner to do tapping as a way of connecting with me in the morning. And I must admit, initially there was resistance. But when I said, okay, we're just going to do it for a couple of minutes to see how you felt, actually they were able to connect with their body in a way that they weren't. So I think there's something about what you're saying, actually if you give space to people's interests and the length of time in which they can tolerate newness or discomfort, people will be open to that
Yeah.
within that. When you first started to think about more life, did you go through trauma and so that you experienced life, or did you have a wonderful upbringing and so life has been a building up of a good foundation? How did your kind of initial journey start?
Um, okay, now we're moving into a bit heavier stuff. So the way that I mean, I came into life through trauma. So trauma was in my life from being in my mom's womb, actually. So what happened is that my mom got pregnant with me, and 1 month after her first daughter passed away. So, I mean, I don't need to describe more, but apparently it was a very traumatic experience for her, for me, because I was already in her body, right? On an emotional, spiritual level, I experienced the same sadness, fear, grief that my parents went through and the loss, right? So it was heavy, it was a bit too much. But so you see that trauma was already embedded in my DNA, right? I mean, the thing is that I started digging deeper into that, thanks to coaching, right? And all these things. And that's why I'm writing the book From Fear to Love, because fear, right? My mom's fear of losing me, right? They had issues with having babies. So the first one passed away because she had anemia, and then she had 2 more miscarriages, and then me. But I'm healthy, I'm here. So, but it's interesting what happens in during the pregnancy and the first 2-3 years, right? In our childhood, 6 years in total, right? That we simply absorb the emotions of our parents, especially our moms. And actually, the relationship with our mom is the foundation of our love relationship. So for me, the I mean the beginning of the journey was not that.
I absolutely. I found it really interesting in the research that I think about things intergenerationally, and so my story comes from a story of slavery, and trauma can last up to 14 generations, and at least 4. So when you then think about trauma we experience, I I'm curious about what was mum's childhood like, what was mum's mums and mum's mums mums. And I think there's something, you're right, when there is sadness, my daughter is pregnant at the moment and I'm going to be a grandmother for the first time.
How?
My highest, no, I'm so excited. My highest content is creating a space that is caring and loving and safe in the environment. But I'm listening to you and I see a story of resilience and growth, post-traumatic stress, that there's an ability to kind of have, an environmental experience, whether it's in the womb or whether it's external. It seems to me that your path has enabled you to grow and thrive from the difficult beginnings you might have had.
Yeah, I guess so. But for 30 years, I was not even aware of what was happening in my side and the trauma and everything. So I think I started unpacking thanks to coaching and other things that I've been doing, theta healing, hypnotherapy, etc. Because I was always curious to understand. And I remember once, I had a reading with an astrologist, and he was like, Flora, the first thing that I see on your chart is that you had a trauma which will become a gift in your life. And this really hit me, right? And this is growth mindset. So how this trauma can become a gift thanks to this, I'm writing the book. I have my coaching. I've grown a lot, as you said, right? So it's super interesting, and then it's easier then to help others because I healed my own trauma in order then uh, to support, to practice tools, what worked for me, and then to be able to help other people.
When is your book coming out, Flora? How can we find your book? When are you going to get it published, or is it published? And then where can we find it?
It's not. It's still in the making, right? I'm still writing it. My goal is to finish the writing process this year. So, yeah, everything. I mean, people, they can follow me on Instagram or on my website, florabami.com, and Instagram and LinkedIn as well, or register for my newsletter. So, yeah, I'm in the process of, it's a big project.
Can I just ask you, why a book? What is it about this particular book? Everyone, they say there's a book in everyone.
Yeah.
This book is a very special book for you. What is it about this book and what you want to say is important now for us to read?
I think I decided that like 2 years ago. And I think, again, thanks to my journey and how I gradually moved from fear to love, but I was very inspired by some books that I've read around these two energies. I'm doing the Course in Miracles for 2 years now. So this really, again, the end, because the Course in Miracles talks about fear and love, right? And so these kind of concepts resonated very well with me and my journey. And because I'm experiencing the shifts, how does it feel to live from fear? And sometimes, yeah, I may be triggered, my old self may come up, right? So I see. But then I mostly live from the space of love. And it feels so peaceful, it's so purposeful, it has impact on others, but also I enjoy my life. And thanks to my coaching, as I said, caring is my essentially positive quality, and then supporting others. So how can I do that through different channels? And my purpose is to have positive impact, so to contribute into changing our world. And I always wanted to share this story, right? It's, as I said, it's a bit heavy. It starts even from day one, right? -1 with the trauma. But then there is hope out there. There's a reason that our souls choose our paths, the way that we come into the world, that we go through the traumas that we go in order to move into love, right? So there's a reason that everything happens. So yeah, just sharing it with others, but I'm trying to make it practical, always with tools and practices, stories from clients, my own story. So it's not just a biography of Flora, right? It's really, I structured it into 10 steps, so one step after another. So as we make peace with fear. I mean, I'm talking about fear that keeps us stuck, right? We need also the fear. I'm not against fear, but how we can embrace love even more, right? And love ourselves, love life, others, love our difficult emotions, and operate mostly with our parasympathetic nervous system being activated, not under stress all time, which is a lifelong journey. I'm not saying that my book, I'm living from love all day long, right? But I'm aware.
Do you see it as a sequence, Flora? Do you see it, or can we just look at one chapter, take what we need, and then just read it in a way that suits? Or is it a sequence of behaviors that we need to learn, do you think?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on the person and the phase of life that people are, right? So you're right, because it's very practical. You cannot work with all the tools at the same time. But again, by reading it through, this chapter may resonate with you now, going through this phase, right? Or going through this struggle, or trying to build something new. And you may use this tool, or it could be forgiveness, could be mindfulness, whatever, more than other tools. But you will have a quite comprehensive toolbox, I would say, to help you throughout your life.
What would you want us to know? Our session's coming towards the end. What is the one gift or the one lesson or couple of lessons that we should take away and just explore for our own personal growth?
Hmm. Um, that's a good question. I think since we just moved into 2025, it's a new year, new beginning, new chapter. Um, and we had the full moon yesterday in Cancer, so I read a few things around that. I think let us all set the intention this year to release and let go anything that doesn't serve us, whatever it is, just setting the intention and verbalizing that it's super powerful for the body and mind to release, make peace. I release, I let it go, and be open and receptive to abundance and love. So I think one of my favorite practices every morning to set an intention and to share it out loud, and then I see magic, right? Things happen sometimes, like, wow, I said that this morning and it happened. But I think it's always important, in order to be open and receptive, I need to let go, to release. So how can I work with in these two dynamics? When I struggle, let me let it go, release, and let the universe take care of that. Can be super challenging. It's okay. I don't have control. I let it go, and then I'm open to anything that is designed for me. Um, yeah, I think this.
I am smiling, Flora. I just think you are a beautiful spirit and soul on this earth. And I really feel blessed that you've given me your time and others to listen to your ideas and the deep connection. I really feel that you have a deep connection um, just with life, through your own re examining of life and being able to sit with clients and individuals and groups and to help them shift their stories. I think 2025 is a beautiful year of abundance. And I no doubt your book will be really helpful. So I really look forward to being able to kind of get your book um, and learn from your stories. Do you do events or any activities in the UK, or is it just mainly based in Switzerland? Where else can we find you if we want to do work? And do you work online?
Yeah, I work mostly online, right? I have clients all over the world, from Africa, California, Europe for sure. So yeah, mainly on Zoom, all my coaching sessions. Podcasts a lot. I started doing that even more. I really want to share my experience, my tools, my wisdom. And then keynote speeches as well. It's something that I started last year. So also designing workshops on well-being topics, resilience topics. Yeah. So yeah, people can find me on my website. And again, as I said, my newsletter is something that I send out every month. And it's structured in a way where every month people have a practice for the month, a powerful question to reflect, an affirmation, a podcast, a book, and an article from me or other things that may come up. So it's something that I work on Sundays, like one Sunday every month, then I'm in my creative flow for my community.
Oh, thank you for agreeing to be curious with counselling reflections. And I really invite everyone to kind of find you and sign up to your newsletters. So please let us know if you could just, drop us a line with all your information again so we can kind of put it out there once the podcast is out and running. I really appreciate and value your expertise and that the fact that you brought joys for me this evening in Manchester. I feel really, it's just been lovely. Thank you.